Salutations everybody, it is Maddie here today, and PlayStation is killing it yet again like some late night Mickey Dons. It's the good stuff and I am loving it. PlayStation took the crown, and in 2018 they are looking to do the same thing. I could probably slide in a Burger King joke there as well, but let's move on and talk about the important stuff, which is video games. So this week was Paris Games Week, and PlayStation showcased a lot of new gameplay for their titles coming out in 2018. There was one con to all of this, and it's that we got no release dates whatsoever, just windows. I'm assuming that come PlayStation Experience in December, we're gonna have at least a couple of dates for some of these games, because some of them were dated for early 2018, spring 2018, and I'd imagine by that point in time, we will have an official date. I'm gonna run down everything I personally found interesting in their conference. For starters, we got a new Spider-Man trailer, and I mean, I dressed up as Spider-Man for Halloween, so seeing more Spider-Man, and considering this is one of my most anticipated games of 2018, arguably at this very moment in time, specifically the most anticipated game, I was hyped to see an actual story trailer where we see less of the superhero Peter Parker and more of the human side of him. There was also a unique looking mechanic where it seems like we can play as Mary Jane. I'm not sure what Insomniac's doing here, but I'm definitely curious to see how it plans out. It might have been just a cutscene, but the way the camera was oriented, the way it was controlled, it looked more like it was entering a gameplay scene. We also got to see the shocker, so that was the icing on the cake for me after what was an excellent trailer and only increased the hype for a game that I was through the roof over. Next was God of War, which is actually a title I didn't give a damn about. I love the God of War series, but I didn't like this new rendition of it. The reason for that was mainly because of how the combat worked. I was a fan of the older combat in the original series, and this one, it looked like the camera was too close. It looked very clunky, very heavy, and I quite honestly didn't like that feel. It reminded me of For Honor out of all games. But now, with this new demo, it looks like a lot of the kinks have been worked out. I noticed the camera was pulled out a little bit more, and overall, it looked way smoother and more of the fast-paced combat that we know is in that God of War DNA. I like the heavy-hitting impacts that they're adding to this new combat system, but I think that in the DNA of God of War is always that fast action, and it seems like that's what they've tweaked in this latest demo. So that was something I was a big fan of. And the other thing that I have a complaint about is the little kid doesn't shut up. He talks way too much, so I'm hoping now they tweak that a little bit. But overall, God of War was looking solid in my opinion. Next is Detroit Become Human. Now, I've been really excited for this game because I love Quantic Dream. I really enjoyed Heavy Rain, and I think Beyond Two Souls did not get enough credit for all the excellent things it did. From a storytelling perspective, I feel like Detroit Become Human is going to be absolutely enamoring. It felt like just that part of the game that we saw in this trailer here could have actually been its own main story. It felt like there was this real focus on each individual chunk of the game as we've seen more and more trailers, and the point of it is to show all the choices, all the different things and how they can pan out. The point being is we want to see if this will impact our ending, but from what we can see now, at least it's going to be emotionally gripping. It's going to engage the player. These are characters I'm instantly intrigued about. I mean, an AI bot that's entering as a maid and she just had her memory wiped, and in the trailer we're hearing how the father will actually end up wiping her memory again if she disobeys, and how that will factor into the whole story. And I'm not sure what the main story really is here in the overarching narrative, but regardless, the premise is so intriguing, and I'm there, man. I'm there. I'm sold. Just give me a release date, please, like every other game I've already talked about. Afterwards, we have Shadow of the Colossus. When this game dropped on the PS2, it was something like we had never seen before. This insane sense of scale, these great, humongous creatures that were also boss fights. The boss fights were levels in their own rights. It wasn't like traditional gaming on the PS2 era where you'd go through a level and then get to the boss. Like I said, the bosses were their own levels. Shadow of Colossus on the PS4 seems to have that awesome attention to detail that the original really thrived off of. We can see light shining through all the trees, particle effects. When he climbs onto the back of the monster, we can see the fur is moving with the wind, and I'm sure some of these details will be dumbed down a little bit with the final product for optimization purposes, but I like what I saw. I'm not super over the top on the game because I wasn't a huge fan of the original, but I respect what it is. I thought it was a good game, and I can see exactly why people are excited for the new Shadow of the Colossus. Arguably the biggest surprise was Sucker Punch's brand new IP. I did not expect them to have an announcement. It was not Sly 5 5. I know it's a shame, and some people are going to say, Maddie, that era of gaming is over, but quite honestly,
fuck those guys.
We don't know much about Sucker Punch's new IP, but the idea of them creating a samurai game has me really optimistic. With that said, I didn't enjoy Infamous Second Son all too much. I thought that game was largely disappointing from the choice perspective, from the gameplay side of things. Character development wasn't all too good. I just really didn't enjoy that title all that much. Now, while I loved Infamous 1, 2, and the Sly Cooper series, I trust in Sucker Punch. I'm hoping this new direction for them is something exciting, something that they're passionate about, because it felt like something was missing with Second Son. It felt like it was designed to be more of a tech demo than a game that they were actually invested in. Plus, you guys know I like the Japanese stuff, so I mean, come on, this is an easy one for me. And just like Sony did for the press conference, I saved the best for last, and I'm going to be talking about this more in a separate video in its own right, but The Last of Us Part 2, oh my. I mean, I didn't know a single name. I didn't know any of these characters' backstories. I had that scenario right there, right then, and I was invested. I was so into what was happening, and it was brutal. It like made you wince in pain. Something that the first Last of Us managed to do on multiple occasions with its heavy, brutal nature. I absolutely cannot wait for The Last of Us Part 2, and like I said, I want to dedicate a full entire video to that game in its own right, but just know, oh man, it's so awesome looking, and I seriously cannot wait for it. I hope it does end up coming out in 2018 and it does not suffer any delays. But overall, that's just my thoughts on Sony's press conference that they had at the Paris Games Week. I liked a lot of what I saw. They had some cool indie announcements like Spelunky 2, Guacamelee 2. I actually never played the original Spelunky, and I wasn't a fan of the first Guacamelee, but I know a lot of people are really excited about it. And I'd love to hear what you guys enjoyed at the show, if you caught it or you saw the trailers afterwards, in the comments down below. So fire away. Other than that, follow me on Twitter, like me on Facebook. Those links are in the description down below, along with my Patreon. Do consider supporting that, as it fuels all the content we create here. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.